Hey y'all, this is Stacy. Welcome back to the kitchen. Today we are making what is probably one of my most favorite summer dishes, Southern fried corn. Now, this isn't so much a recipe as it is a method, so hang with me here. I'm gonna walk you through how to create the perfect fried corn with the perfect texture with a few little tips and tricks. To start, we've got about 8 to 10 ears of fresh, sweet corn. Now, if you've ever shucked corn, you know what a hassle that can be, but let me show you a really easy way to do that. Start by taking the whole cobs, husks, silks, and everything, popping them right in the microwave, just like this. You can do 2 or 3 at a time. You're gonna microwave those. So what's gonna happen is it's gonna steam in the husk, and then when you're ready to shuck these, it's super easy because the steam is gonna help the shucks and the silks fall right off. Look how easy that is, just to pull right off. And it makes this process so much easier. Now, once you've got all the husks and the silks off, if you find that there are some stubborn silks that are hanging around, a simple vegetable brush should get those right off. And you can also run this under some water at the faucet, and that might help too. All right, once we've got our corn shucked and we've got all the silks, it's time to prep the corn for cooking. And this is really the crucial step, and what is that I think makes fried corn. There's a very unique texture here that we need to achieve, and there's a couple different ways that we can do that. So let me walk you through the tools. Now, there is no clean way to do this. You're gonna make a little bit of a mess. Some people like to do it on the counter, some like to do it in the sink that kind of helps contain some of that. You could use a large dish pan like this. You know, one of the things too that you can do, I learned this quite a while back, is take a bundt pan like this. And whether you place this in the pan, in the sink, on the counter, what happens is this hole in the middle is perfect for kind of holding the end of your corn. That way you can slice it down and it works to catch the corn as we cut it off the cob. Now, my grandmother always used this corn cutter just like this. In fact, this is her corn cutter. And what's great about this is that it works to cut the corn off the cob, but then it has these little parts here that work to get the starch out of the cob. And that really is the key here. It's not just about cutting the corn off of the cob, it's also about getting that starch out as well. And there's a couple different ways that we can do that. Obviously, this is a great way because it does a lot of the work for you. We put one of these in the Amazon shop. That way, if you're looking for this, but if you don't have this, there are several other options. Now, this is a corn cutter here that works great at cutting corn off the cob, but it doesn't work great at getting that starch out of the cob once we've cut it off. So this is great for like whole kernel corn or corn like that, but not necessarily here like for this fried corn. The easiest way to do this is really just to use a knife. And like I said, there's no easy way necessarily because you're gonna make a little bit of a mess. Put on an apron, prepare to clean the kitchen a little bit, but trust me when I tell you, it's all gonna be worth it in the end. Now, I'm gonna do it here in the pan. I typically, like I said, do it in the sink just to kind of help make the process a little bit easier to clean up. But what you're gonna need is a large chef's knife that's pretty sharp, like this. All I'm gonna do is just start here, and I prefer to cut about half of the kernel off and leave half of it still on the cob. Other folks will essentially just cut the top off the corn and then scrape it. So it's really a matter of personal preference, but this is how I do it. So I'm just gonna slowly cut down here and cut about half of the kernel off into my pan. All right, so we got the corn cut off the cob, but like I said, if you look closely here, you can see that I just cut about half of the kernel off, leaving the rest on the cob, because what we're gonna do now is we're gonna scrape those cobs. Scraping those cobs is gonna get the rest of that starch and the germ and everything out, because that's gonna be really important in terms of flavor and texture for our dish here. All right, so to get that starch out, there are a couple different ways we can do that. Now, I was taught to take the back of your knife, put it against the cob, and just kind of press down like this. So you can actually see the difference here. This is one that we've not scraped, and this is one that we have scraped, and you can see that we got all of that starch and stuff out of those individual kernels. A couple weeks ago, though, a reader wrote in and told me that she had been taught to do the same method, but to use a spoon. and that the spoon will actually help catch some of that. Because what happens is, as you squeeze this, it kind of sprays everywhere, and I do think that the spoon might help a little bit. All right, so once we got all of those scraped and we have a mess everywhere, I want you to actually see the difference though here. On this side, you can see the corn that we cut off the cob, and here you can see where we scraped those cobs and got the rest of the corn out. There's a very different texture between the two, and each of these is important in terms of the texture of fried corn. All right, now that I got things cleaned up and my glasses wiped off, it's time to actually start cooking. What I'm going to do is I've got a large cast iron skillet here that I'm going to put over medium heat. And to this, I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of bacon grease. Now, I think bacon grease is really important to this dish because it gives it great smoky, salty flavor. But if you don't have bacon grease, you can use butter. We're going to use a combination of about 2 tablespoons of bacon grease and 4 tablespoons of butter. But you can use all butter. You'll just need about 6 tablespoons of butter once everything is said and done. So I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons. I'm going to be a little generous with this. Of our bacon grease right into our pan. And I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of butter as well. We're going to add a little more butter once this is finished, but we're going to start right where we are here. And if you need some tips about storing bacon grease, there's some great information both on the blog and the YouTube channel about the proper ways to save that. So check that out as well. All right, got my trusty wooden spoon here. This is just about melted, so I'm going to start adding my corn. And we're going to add everything that's in here, the liquid and everything. And you can see with 10 ears of corn, this is quite a bit. It's going to cook down some, but still, you're going to want to make sure that you start with a large skillet. All right, I'm going to add a little salt, a little pepper. I'm going to reduce this to a medium-low, and I'm going to cook, stirring pretty frequently until it's cooked to your liking. Now, everybody's idea about how tender this should be is a little different. I like when it has a little bit of a bite. Other folks like to cook it all the way down, even to where the corn starts to turn brown. But that's essentially all there is to this. Right before it's finished, and to our liking, we're going to add about 2 tablespoons more of unsalted butter. All right, so this has been cooking for about 20 to 30 minutes, which seems to be about right in terms of my personal preference. You can see this is cooked down. Some of that corn has started to brown just a little bit as it got in contact with the pan. And that liquid that we had is all thickened up nicely. I'm going to add about 2 additional tablespoons of butter here. And then we can add a little more salt or a little more pepper. This is also the point where if you want to add a little heavy cream, you could add a splash or 2 of heavy cream to it, just to give it a little bit more of that creamed corn kind of flavor. And then it's ready to serve. All right, let's taste. It's sweet, still has a little crunch, and that smoky flavor from the bacon grease is really what takes this dish over the top. Folks, you can find this full recipe on the website at southernbite.com. Just search for Southern Fried Corn. Y'all enjoy.